Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new season of Women's Health Tech Wednesdays. My name is Nina Joshi, and I am very excited to jump in with our first episode of the year. To kick off the season, we have a very special episode that is more geared towards a specific topic, which is partnering with pharma for digital therapeutic development and commercialization. The expert to help us lead this conversation is our guest today, Emily Kunka. But before we jump into that, wanted to give a quick little reminder that we do have a conference coming up on January 20th. So please be sure to check that out. All of the information will be in the chat. And so with that, wanted to introduce our guest today, Emily. Emily is a digital business transformation project lead within UCB, which is based in San Francisco. In her role, she leads projects that help solve some of the most interesting, innovative, and pressing issues which must be addressed to deliver the promising future of a digitally transformed healthcare through high quality digital products and solutions. Joining the organization in 2020 and utilizing her deep knowledge of digital design, strategy, product, and project management, Emily is a leader, influencer, and change agent within UCB. Emily translates patient and caregiver needs into achievable digital vision and roadmap that will improve the patient experience and outcomes by bringing transformational projects to life. Hi, Emily. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Nina. Thanks so much for having me. It's a delight to be here.
Incredible. So maybe to kick off the conversation, you can share with us a little bit more about why should digital therapeutic companies be looking to partner with pharma, and what are the benefits of working with someone like UCB?
Yeah, I would say first off, we have complementary skill sets. So, UCB, where pharma in general, don't necessarily, we haven't been developing digital products for many years, right? So we don't really have that skill set, but what we do know is our patient populations. And so we have a lot of existing products, marketed products within well-established channels where we can reach patients and healthcare providers pretty easily. We have established alliances with patient support associations and foundations. So that paired with, a partner, a tech partner who has the expertise in building a technology platform is really a great marriage, to use a metaphor, because of the fact that each kind of brings a unique skill set that the other one doesn't have. So it's great. And then also, our patients and providers trust us to really generate solid clinical evidence behind our products. So we bring kind of the reputation, and then a lot of these digital therapeutics companies or just tech partners are sometimes new to the field. So they know, our patients know us. And so by having that trust existing, it helps things if we do get a product to market.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are some of the challenges a digital therapeutic company could expect when working with a pharma to co-develop and to commercialize some type of tech product?
Well, the word challenges, I think about challenges in a different way. I think pharma are often large organizations, and so we can be very thorough in vetting products, and there's a lot of key stakeholders involved, and a lot of them want to do a lot of pressure testing and demos, and so it can be very labor intensive, I think, for some of these small DTX companies or small tech companies, because they're not used to having so many meetings to really discuss and hash out things the way that big pharma is used to having. So, we really need to make sure that whatever we invest in is complementary to our core strategy. And part of that is really making sure that whatever product we invest in, co-develop in, has a defensible IP. And so it has differentiating factors in it. And a lot of the products that are existing out there for digital therapeutics are sort of that first generation of DTX has been really CBT based, cognitive behavioral therapy. And so we're really interested in kind of what's that next generation of digital therapeutics that goes beyond that or that builds upon CBT. So we're interested in products that go beyond CBT, have more than just a symptom diary, and really have evidence or can have the ability to build evidence in a modular way for payers and self-insured employers to kind of ensure that we get through the right doors and have the right coverage early on to make sure that we're making the impact that we want and getting the health outcomes that we want. So I would say the challenge for DTX companies is that they don't often expect the amount of time and effort that's required to kind of get to a stage where, the company like ours is comfortable and ready for the product and has a good idea of an MVP.
Absolutely. And also wanted to call it, I love how you kind of mentioned, we're familiar with the first gen, but what does that next gen look like? I think that forward thinking is really important. Absolutely. Yeah. And, kind of thinking through, really your role within the pharma company, we know that many pharma companies kind of find themselves weighing, options in that classic build, borrow, buy paradigm. What is UCB's current strategy for competing in a digital therapeutic market?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly know that we don't have all the skill sets needed to develop a product ourselves. So we definitely want to co-develop a product, and that means partnering. So we're always scanning the marketplace, the landscape for who's out there and what they're doing, what kind of pipeline they have. So we're definitely in between buy and build right now, and I think that is the kind of partnership route. And so we really want to utilize a partner's existing investments, technologies, capabilities, and experience. And like I said, I feel like we have a complementary skill set for that. But we really want to invest and co-develop the product, but we don't want to be entirely responsible for it. So we don't want to be the device manufacturer. But we do want to contribute to its clinical validation. So we would love to, co-develop the randomized controlled trials for it. But we don't want to be registering the product with regulators and being sort of the regulatory responsible party. So we want to license the product, but we don't need product exclusivity. So we want to be able to sell the product, co-develop and sell the product, but be kind of tangentially involved in some regulatory input without being the one responsible.
That makes sense. And from, kind of taking on the lens of a digital therapeutic company, what should these types of digital therapeutic companies include in, a pitch for a partnership?
That's a great question. So we've gotten many people pitching us, and we're encouraging many people to continue to pitch to us. But I think the most important thing to have is a prototype of the product. A lot of people come to us and they say, well, here's the pipeline of stuff we've done before, and it's in a totally different therapeutic area that you're not interested in. It's like, well, that's great, but it doesn't really apply to what we're kind of looking at today. So we love sort of a demo or a wireframe of the product, version 1 of the product. We'd love peer-reviewed literature supporting the device mechanism of action. We really think, it's got to be a novel mechanism of action that's, like I said earlier, kind of defensible from an IP realm. And then we're also looking to make sure that what they're developing is really within the patient population of interest. So we want to be building unique products, and ideally that means that the product has proprietary algorithms of some sort that allows the product to be personalized in some way. So does the algorithm account for what the patient is kind of inputting into the DTX product, and is it able to predict, prevent, or diagnose or intervene in the disease in an earlier stage? And so we're really looking to have the product generate data as well as capture data, and obviously when we go to payers, in a demonstrable way, say that we can generate cost savings, and then obviously revenue from that. So the other thing is product market strategy. We want to make sure that the product fits within our existing healthcare provider workflows. We don't want to be imposing things on physicians that add to their workload. So we want to make sure that the product will be easily adopted. And that's really thinking about how it will fit within kind of the existing or upcoming status quo of standard of care or their workflows that are currently going on. The last thing is we're really looking at products that already have, it's a bonus if a company includes in their pitch that they have gotten breakthrough designation with the FDA if they do have an initial product, because that will make it easier for the product to be covered under CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. That obviously means that there's an easier revenue stream once you get to market.
Awesome. Yeah, you just gave us a great roadmap for pitching, so that was incredible.
Yeah, we've had a few, so we've kind of had some learning experiences, and those are sort of the nuggets I've pulled out.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's incredible. So to continue on your train of wisdom for us, how do pharma companies vet potential digital therapeutic products?
Yeah, so across all of our portfolio of potential products and specifically within DTX products, we have sort of a framework that we go by, and that's desirability, feasibility or utility, strategic fit, and viability. So I know that's a mouthful, so I'll kind of go through each one individually. So for desirability, just like a drug product, we need to make sure that the product has an intended use that's got a favorable benefit risk ratio. Certainly with digital therapeutics products, we don't anticipate there being a lot of risk or a lot of potential for harm, but there could always be. You don't need to totally discount that. So that's desirability. Feasibility, utility. We're looking at companies who use best practices for design, deployment, manufacture, and maintenance. So a lot of that framework is set forth by the FDA pre-cert program for DTX products. Or for software as a medical device, SAMD. And so they really set forth, what are the quality standards that, and it's really on the company itself, not necessarily the product. Have the end users been engaged in the product development itself? That's always a plus. How has the manufacturer considered patient privacy and security? Is the product HIPAA compliant? Do you have a HIPAA compliant certification? And then for strategic fit, does the product stand alone or in combination with one of our drugs or medical devices? Does it collect, analyze, and apply real-world evidence or product performance data? You really want kind of a feedback loop of, the data that's that the patient is putting into the product and having that come back to the manufacturer or co-developer like ourselves to make sure that we're building a product that patients like and want, right? And then is the product a software as a medical device, which either diagnoses, treats, or manages disease? Obviously, those are things, there are a lot of products out there that are wellness products, but they aren't necessarily digital therapeutics that are potentially prescription digital therapeutics, which is what we're interested in, or they're called PDTs. And then lastly is viability. And for viability, we're looking, is the product itself being built with health data interoperability standards like HL7 and FHIR? Does the product support algorithm development? And then lastly, does it reduce physician workload? I know I mentioned that earlier, but it's really important to us that we really build a product that's complementary to physicians' workloads. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really great framework. And so now kind of, moving down the pathway from pitch to now a selection process. So during a selection process, when it comes to, what types of digital therapeutic partners, what sorts of questions are you or, does pharma ask themselves about whether or not to partner?
Yes, so I mentioned earlier that, there's a lot of stakeholders involved. We have a lot of internal conversations in between when we meet with the potential DTX partners. And so there's a lot of conversation happening, and really the main thing or main sticking point for us is, does the product really align with our patient value strategy? Does it align with our core therapeutic areas of interest? And do we have existing marketing and commercial infrastructure to really get the product out to market? So it could be that we're developing a product, say in ALS, but we don't have a marketed product in ALS. So even though we're interested in that therapeutic area, we don't have the commercial infrastructure in place. So we have to kind of take into account all those things. Do we have an interest, but then also do we have the MSLs, the medical science liaisons? Do we have the existing partnerships within the industry that could really help us sell the product once it's to market? We also ask ourselves whether the company itself has an established track record or reputation. Does it have a robust pipeline of products? I know there are companies out there who are either brand new and they have a vision or a pipeline, but then there's also a couple, now that DTX has been, a thing for a couple years now, there are companies who have a couple marketed products. So those are really attractive to us. And so, yeah, if you have a robust pipeline, especially within therapeutic areas that are similar to ours, so say if it's stroke, so okay, it's in neurology, but it's not necessarily neurodegeneration. It's like, okay, it's similar enough, they share XYZ symptoms, then it's more attractive to us to know that they've been in a similar space. And then lastly, does the company itself have an experienced team of clinicians, technologists, behavioral scientists, regulatory experts. I mentioned that earlier about regulatory expertise being really a hot commodity, and then also legal and compliance specialists and operational teams. So if they have a huge team of lots of expertise, great. I think that's a plus. We don't expect that a lot of them do because they're a lot of times small startups, but if they especially have the ability to pull upon regulatory experts that have expertise submitting these kinds of dossiers to health authorities, then that's huge. And then lastly, the ability to scale globally. A lot of these companies are super small and have only done US-based trials or are really focused on the US-based market. And we are too, but we're also a Belgian company. So we don't require that they have expertise in many markets, but it's certainly a plus when we do know that they have more than a US footprint there, especially, if it's a European footprint, that's a plus.
Got it. Very, very helpful information. And so, you kind of alluded to this earlier, just about how digital therapeutics have, been a thing for a while, and it's a pretty competitive time, especially now, to be jumping into digital therapeutics. There's so many people that are, eager to join the bandwagon and get started. For you, in your opinion, what is an appropriate time to begin discussing a term sheet or things of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly appreciate companies that come in and have a term sheet ready to go and want to partner right away, and we love that enthusiasm. But in the same way, we really, as a big pharma, need some kind of time to digest things first and really understand the product itself, the product strategy, especially the mechanism of action, the target patient profile. So all of those things really kind of need to be discussed sort of ad nauseum before we can really think about solidifying a partnership itself. So we need that solid buy-in from the stakeholders around the company before we kind of discuss a term sheet or terms of collaboration. And a lot of those meetings occur under a CDA. So there's confidentiality involved. We're sharing documents that we wouldn't normally share without a CDA in place. But it's really to get that momentum and traction with the right people within the company. And we're really looking for partners who are really eager to work with us and teach. And so both teach and learn from us, because, as we mentioned earlier, there's that synergy of skill sets. And so we're looking for somebody who kind of has a forward momentum, but is able to kind of take it in stride. And so, we really need to kind of really understand the product itself, all of those things before we get to a term sheet. But we're more than happy to get there once we've made all the right decisions. We're a little slower than a lot of times these small startups expect.
No, I think that's really, and I like how you kind of highlighted that it is a collaboration, that it really is kind of a sharing of skill sets. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah, they have a lot of things that we don't know that we would like to know, and vice versa. We can definitely learn from each other. I'm sure they have experience we have, and vice versa. So it's we both bring something unique to the table.
And kind of in that same vein, in your opinion, what does an optimal partnership look like? What is an optimal partnership structure?
That's a great question. We've struggled with this question ourselves, but we really think that it needs to be sort of a staged partnership, in that it's multi-year, and we want to co-develop the products before we commercialize them, and that may involve several studies before we even get to the randomized controlled trial. So there may be some feasibility, viability kind of studies, but a staged multi-year partnership in which we share the risk is important. So we want to give input on the trial designs and the evidence generation strategy and the product development process itself. But we would have a sort of a milestone-based payment according to how the product progresses during development. So anywhere from proof of concept to the pivotal phase study on to market, each one of those would have a milestone with payment associated with it. And once we get to market, there's sort of be a license to sell the product, and we would get royalties off those sales. So we would also, we would like to examine, how we can bring on board pharmacy benefit manager digital formularies. I think that's such a big gateway that we need to be exploring, is not only selling through our traditional pipelines through healthcare providers, but also through these. Getting on formularies would be huge. And then I mentioned earlier, making sure that we are working with somebody who brings the right software as a medical device regulatory experience. So that would be part of the partnership structure, is their commitment to be the regulatory sponsor of the product. That's important to us. And then lastly, making sure that there's a data sharing agreement in place. So co-developing a product, we want to get the data from it, right? So it's certainly important to us to have a feedback loop with the real world evidence generated from the product once it's not only in development, but also on the market, so that we can improve the product and learn from it within that population of interest.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of speaking of, the need to continuously generate feedback and really understand, where, trends are going. What are some of UCB's aspirations within the digital therapeutic space in the future?
Yeah, so to date we've been talking about partnership, but I think the future for us in pharma is to kind of build this stuff in house eventually, right? So we want to own this space. We want to learn it. We want to make long-term investments in it. We want to bring all of that expertise in house and be able to build bespoke DTX products internally. So that's the vision. We're nowhere near that right now. We need to kind of co-develop and partner and learn first. But I think bringing stuff in house would allow us to really control the product roadmap. We would have dedicated verticals within the company that would allow us to focus on these products in house and make sure that we have exclusivity over the product in the market. And just making sure that we're able to see the product through from end to end, from each stage, from concept to launch and beyond. So having that kind of control would be nice. So I'm hopeful that we're on a trajectory to get there within 5 years time or so, but it's a huge aspiration right now. I think right now we just need to focus on obviously the partnership angle and really seek out great partners that we can learn from and kind of get some quicker wins to get some products to market, so that we're able to kind of think about how we would do it ourselves.
Absolutely. And we do have 2 questions from the audience, but before we jump into that, wanted to see, as we conclude, if you have any final thoughts about kind of the partnership between pharma and digital therapeutics.
Yeah, I mean, my final thoughts are really, pharma brings a great breadth of resources and, over 100 years of experience, doing development work. Usually it's within drugs. But we don't necessarily have everything needed to work in the emerging tech space. So while we bring, great key opinion leaders and clinical networks and a global reach and presence, there are certainly gaps in our technical and legal and regulatory expertise, specifically within the software as a medical device context. So we really are interested in talking to many different digital therapeutics partners that can help fill those gaps and co-develop with us. So we're really excited for what's on the horizon. It's very early, but we have great aspirations and we want to make things happen. We just kind of want to take baby steps as we kind of get into things. Yeah.
No, I love it. And as they say, baby steps are still steps. So I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, we have 2 questions from the audience. Would love to get your thoughts on. So the first question is from Kate, and her question is, would love for you to talk more about what you see as trends for that next gen after CBT.
Yeah, so it's really about the personalization, right? Everything to date has been a little cookie cutter and real linear in the way it's built. It's built to be this module, then this module, and that module builds upon the last one. But the next generation will be more modular. So the next module will react or be in reaction to how the previous module went, or what that person might have expressed within that module, how they answered the question. So the experience would change based upon the input from the user. It wouldn't be so linear. And it would also incorporate things that were way more personalized. So they, and it's also lifestyle stuff as well. So there's the core content, then there's content on top of that for, sleep and for diet and for managing stress. And so it's not only that you're focusing on whatever the symptomatology is, but it's reducing symptoms of depression and really managing those comorbidities.
Thank you for answering that. I think we have time for one last question, and that is, can you elaborate more on the role of utilizing PBMs for digital therapeutics?
Yeah, I mean, PBMs are a great way to easily get to market to where things are already approved, right? So you're on a formulary where people can just pick and say, here, choose any of these things and it's covered. So it's just basically a way to get your product to market in an easier way. So it just really, it's important. There are many different PBMs. And I think each PBM is really noticing the importance of the digital formulary, and they're only going to continue to grow, which kind of scares me in a little way that there's going to be so many things for people to choose from. They're not going to know which one to prescribe if there's a lot of overlap in products. But hopefully there's enough specialization within the products to where it would, a prescribing clinician would know, this product is better than this one, or it has more clinical evidence, or, but they are also there's a big push for nutrition labels for these kinds of products, which I think is a fascinating idea and very needed, which would tell you about how the product itself was built, what kind of evidence is behind it. And so prescribing providers can make an educated decision about what they prescribe on those PBMs.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, thank you so much for an incredible conversation. And I'm sure a lot of folks in the audience may have some questions. So Emily's LinkedIn information is in the chat if you want to ask her directly. But Emily, just wanted to thank you again for such an enlightening conversation. I think we all really learned a lot about what that process looks like for a collaboration. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Cool. So please be sure to join us next week, where we will be talking to Rune Labs for our next Women's Health Tech Wednesdays. Also wanted to quickly plug one last time that we have our conference on January 20th, and all of that registration information is in the chat. Also, if you want to stay in touch about other events, please be sure to follow us on social media. And wanted to give one last shout out to our amazing guest, Emily, for helping us kick off the season of Women's Health Tech Wednesday.
Yay, thanks so much for having me. It's been so fun.
Awesome. Same for us. And then also one last shout out to our sponsors, Goodwin and Witham, for sponsoring this conversation. All right. And with that, I'll say thank you all so much for joining and have a great rest of the day. Bye, everyone.